Folks, my name is Brad Evoy. I'm a member of the Halabu Mi'kmaq Nation and the Executive Director with Disability Justice Network of Ontario. I'm not going to repeat too much said already, but I wanted to add some specific additional thoughts and some alternatives, I think, to things that are being focused on through this motion. I want to thank everyone who's spoken before me on preserving the core of the encampment protocol here in Hamilton. We know that this protocol, as it is, remains a key measure to ensure unhoused folks continue to have access to their wider community here and to critical services found in the city. Also, as we know, many of those unhoused in Hamilton and throughout the province are also disabled. Disability Justice Network of Ontario was founded in 2018 here in Hamilton to work to create a world where disabled people are free to be. And with that principle, friends, disability justice is not simply for those who have the funds and privilege to be housed. Unhoused folks deserve the freedom to be part of their community, to have true, accessible, and affordable housing, and to be free from violence and coercion. As others have discussed, shelter spaces in Hamilton are simply not accessible, nor are many shelter spaces trusted across the province after failures of health and safety through the wider pandemic from which we have truly not yet recovered. The same can be said for housing generally. Housing is neither accessible nor affordable in Hamilton for disabled, unhoused folks. There is further no clear standard to ensure accessibility in public or wider forms of non-market housing. Additionally, past studies have highlighted the reality that many unhoused disabled folks who can and should be able to access ODSP or OW or other support simply cannot due to the wide structural barriers present in these programs. And as we also know, even those who can access social assistance are cut away from vital housing allowance funding if they are unhoused, creating deep and fundamental gaps that no order of government has fully addressed. Further, as folks have already alluded to, just over 2 years ago, there were 14,500 people on either of Ontario's main social assistance programs that were unhoused. And that number has now doubled to 26,500 as of a couple months ago by provincial data obtained by the Trillion. Effectively curtailing encampment policy then only serves to punish unhoused folks who are already being failed across the board by every order of government. And for disabled unhoused folks, there are clear, unambiguous actions that the city can take instead. Rather than pushing unhoused folks to the margins and following the drumbeat of the province, we need expedient, affordable, and accessible housing in Hamilton yesterday. Supporting existing encampments while refusing calls for surveillance, violence, and forced removals that ultimately could result in new sources of mass disablement for unhoused Hamiltonians is ultimately the correct choice here. We also need Hamilton to put its support for raising social assistance rates into real action. Pressure on the province to rapidly rise the rates and allow unhoused folks on OW and ODSP to access a viable housing allowance that keeps pace with market rent while on either program. Friends, moving the violence and precarity of our systems out of sight might temporarily appease business and the NIMBY crowd, but it won't last. For those opposed to community supports in their neighborhood, it might be uncomfortable to see local police violently arrest an unhoused person or observe drug use in public due to closed services or encounter survival behaviors, but the reality of this discomfort pales in comparison to the actual dangers faced by those living through these conditions who are at higher risks of both structural and interpersonal violence. Ultimately, the narratives that conflate mental health challenges, drug toxicity, and access to housing with criminality and violence serve as a misleading backdrop to present violence, to introduce coercive and neglectful policies, and to justify the closure of essential services. And often we talk about this as subtext, but this has been made explicit here in Hamilton with the motion before GIC today. Ultimately, friends, we need a Hamilton that is a model of progress and supportive care in this province. We need a Hamilton that comes together for our neighbors. An end to this policy can perhaps come one day, but we need to fight back against the 30 years of austerity and social murder that have led us here.